In 2026, it is so easy to get leads and build client lists while you sleep. Historically, us recruiters would have to spend hours and hours each day combing through the job boards, combing through LinkedIn to find companies and open roles that were meeting our criteria. We had to also weed out the staffing agencies. We had to weed out companies that were in different industries. We had to weed out companies that were too big. And then we had to, on top of that, find hiring managers at those companies who were the right people to reach out to. And then on top of that, we also had to get their contact information. Just the act of getting one lead could take anywhere from 3 to 5 up to 10 minutes. And so much time is lost doing this that it's easy to spend hours and hours every day doing that. And recruiters were losing so much time to this process every single day. As we all know, the most important thing that we can do, the most high value activity that we recruiters can be spending our time on is talking to clients, talking to candidates. Everything else that we're doing is in service of those two tasks. And when you're spending hours each day building your lists, combing through the job boards, that is taking away valuable time from you being able to push your business forward and push your deals forward. However, I am happy to share that that is no longer the case. Us recruiters are not doomed for that fate anymore. There are a number of different tools out there, but the one that is doing the absolute most on this front is Flynt. We built Flynt to take that entire hassle, that headache, that time suck off of your plate. We built Flynt to free you up to do the most high value tasks that are going to push the needle for your desk and your business. And so if you're wondering, how do I do this? How do I set up Flynt and these AI agents to get leads for me while I sleep? Then buckle up. That's what we're about to talk about right now. So here I have my Flynt account pulled up. And for this video, we will be creating a new Flynt agent to do all of this research for me. So I will first navigate over to the create agent button in the top right. And now we need to give this agent a name. Feel free to give it any name you would like. I tend to stick with it plain and simple and just use a name to describe the agent. So let's say for this example, we want to find software engineer roles in New York, right? But feel free to name it Jason, name it Stacy, name it Carter, whatever you like to do. Feel free to go crazy on this one. But for this example, like I said, we are going to create an agent that's going to search for software engineering roles for us in New York. So I will click next over here. And as you can see, it's walking us through this process of creating an agent. And we're going step by step to tell Flynt, what is your niche? What jobs are you looking to recruit for? And then we can really give it as much data as possible so that Flynt in return can give you the most high quality vetted leads that it can. So the first step in that process after we name the agent is to tell it what type of jobs do we want it to find for us. So as we spoke about, we want to do software engineering roles. And so I can just type into the job titles bar, software engineer, but maybe I want to add a little coverage. Sometimes companies call them software developers. Let's see what other titles we could add in here. Let's say maybe a software engineering manager, click enter, that'll add it to our list. Maybe a director of software engineering. I think for now that's fine, but feel free to play with this to your heart's desire. And then it asks us what location. So, okay, we're looking for software engineering roles, but where? There's a lot of roles out there, right? So we said New York, and I'll keep it broad. I'll keep it the state of New York rather than the city. And then we also get the option to select industries. So let's say I only wanted to find software engineers in New York who work in the automotive industry or the banking industry, all that kind of stuff, right? We really have the ability to filter the open roles by what industry the companies are in. Again, I'm going to keep this one broad just for example's sake, so I won't select anything in industries, but then we can also choose job types. You may want to recruit for only contract roles or temp roles or part-time roles. For me, let's say I want to do only full-time roles. And then you also get the option to filter by location for these positions. So do we want to only find open roles for software engineers that are remote in New York or hybrid in New York, on-site in New York? Again, I will keep this open for the sake of this video, but feel free to make any changes that make sense for your niche. And then we'll click next. Okay, I know I'm looking for software engineering roles in New York. I know I'm looking for full-time roles, but there's still a lot of companies that can fit into these criteria. What size companies do you want? And so the first thing it asks us is, do you want to target companies and open roles at companies that are only under a certain headcount? So the default we have here is 100,000. I think that's fine, but maybe I'll put it down to 20,000, or maybe I'll go lower than that. Let me say 5,000. So I'm telling Flynt, only show me these open roles at companies that have less than or equal to 5,000 employees. And then it also has a contact exclusion button. This is crucial. And so we want to avoid a situation in which you're reaching out to a same company or the same person super recently. So if I reached out to a lead last week, I don't want to reach out to them again today about a new role, right? They might think I'm spamming them. So what this is saying here is that Flynt will exclude any companies that it has already surfaced for us in the past X amount of time. So the default is 3 months, but you can change it to 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, again, whatever makes sense for your business. But then you can also exclude a few industries. And so being that we are a staffing recruiting agency, we likely don't want to reach out to other staffing and recruiting agencies. And so that's why we have these set to default. But let's say for whatever reason, you don't want to reach out to construction companies. You can add that in as well. Just feel free to add that or tweak that to your heart's desire. And then we click next. Now we need to tell Flynt what hiring managers do we want to target. As you can see here, we add the option to filter the hiring manager titles that we target based on company size. And this is super important because we told Flynt we want companies up to 5,000 employees. But let's say we have just a regular software engineer role. The hiring manager for a regular software engineer role at a 10-person startup is likely going to be a co-founder, a CEO, a CTO, right? But at a company of 5,000 employees, if they're hiring for a software engineer role, likely the co-founder, the CEO, the CTO are not the right people to reach out to, right? They are not super hands-on with the role. And so what you want to do is the larger the company, usually the lower the title that you want to target for the hiring managers. And so you can add in the titles. Let's say you want to do for small companies, you want CTO, CEO, but even let's take a step back. Let's say you don't feel super confident in the titles that you want to target. That's totally fine. What you can do is leave it blank and click on this generate suggestions with AI button. And what Flynt is doing now is it is going back on the criteria you gave it. So it's checking, okay, we're looking for software engineering roles in New York at companies under 500. And it's figuring out what would be most likely the best job titles to target for the hiring managers. As you can see, it starts for the smallest companies. It has the highest ranking title. So CEO, CTO, founder. And then as we get into bigger companies, it has lower level titles. So we start with the CEO, then we go to the VP of engineering, and then we go to the senior director of engineering. And that's exactly what we're looking for. On top of that, we also have a filter called let AI determine hiring managers. And if we keep this off, what that is telling Flynt is, okay, for all of the roles that we find, like I told you, Flynt is looking for software engineering roles. It's also looking for, I think we said software engineering manager roles. Whatever the role it finds, it will search for hiring managers that have these titles that match the company size. However, we know that the hiring managers for a software engineer role is likely different than the hiring manager for a software engineering manager role, right? It's higher up. You're going to want someone higher up naturally. And so if we turn this toggle on, what Flynt is going to do is it's going to go line by line. So for every single role that it finds, it's going to think through, okay, here's the job title. Who would be the right hiring manager? Let me look for them. So if it's a low level role, like just a junior software engineer, it'll look for, let's say, a software engineering manager. But if it finds a VP of engineering role, that's open, it will then look for a CTO or CEO. So just by turning on this filter, we can be a lot more specific and a lot more targeted with who we reach out to. Lastly, I wanted to highlight this smart location targeting feature. And what that does is Flynt will first search for the hiring manager in the same location that the open job is in. So for us, we are looking for software roles in New York. And so once it figures out what titles of hiring managers to look out for, it will first search for those people in New York. Because likely, if there's an open role in New York, the manager for that role is likely going to be in New York. And so we'll search there first. If it doesn't find anything, then it will broaden out. But we do that to ensure that the leads we get you are going to be as targeted and as accurate as possible. So once we feel good about our people settings, then we just scroll down and click on next here. And this will bring us to our email campaigns page. I will skip over this for now, but we click on next again, and then we get a couple of options I'll explain here. So the first option we get is for smart filters. And what smart filters are doing is they are just focused on giving you as many high quality leads as possible. If you are to do a super narrow search where Flynt doesn't find that many open roles for you, if you have the smart filters functionality turned on, it will then loosen up and tweak some of your filters in order to get you as many leads as it can. And so let's say, for example, you looked for something super specific. So let's say hypothetically, I created a Flynt agent that was searching for, let's say, rocket scientists in Wyoming. Again, I don't know the rocket scientist market super well, but my gut would probably tell me there are not too many open roles for rocket scientists in Wyoming. And so if you put in those filters, rocket scientist, Wyoming, and Flynt finds like one job or two jobs for you, that's obviously too few. Like to really get a booming recruiting desk, you want to get more than that. You want to get 30, 50, 100 plus leads a day. And so if you have this smart filters turned on, what it will do is it'll tweak some of your filters to be able to get you more results. So it'll say maybe instead of the rocket scientist in Wyoming, it'll say rocket scientist in Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. Right? Or maybe it'll say, we're looking for rocket scientists and aerospace engineers. And so the more that you turn this on, the more leeway that you give Flynt to be able to find you as many high quality leads as it can. The second functionality is for the schedule. And so that's one of the beauties of Flynt is that you can turn this on once and then it runs automatically, again, in your sleep. I have mine set to run at 8 a.m. local time for me. And so that means that right when I log on in the morning, I open up my laptop, boom, all my leads are there ready to go. But you can feel free to select a different time that makes sense for you. And then you can either save and run the agent now, or you can save it and schedule it to run later. So I will save and schedule this to run later because I have hit my limit for the day. I have all my agents maxed out. I'm trying to get as many leads as possible, but I'll just save and schedule that for later. And then what I can do is I have a similar engineering search pulled up in Flynt, so I can show you what those results would look like. So I'm back in my lead agents page on Flynt, and I can click into my engineering agent. Again, this one is different than the one we just created, but similar enough that I think the example will still stand. And I can just view every day. These are the leads that it gave me while I was sleeping. These are the leads it gave me without me having to lift a finger. So it'll tell me the role. It'll give me a link to the role. So this one is for a junior software engineer at Sightline Systems. It'll tell me who the lead is. It'll tell me the company is pretty small, so the CEO is likely the hiring manager. It'll give me a link to the hiring manager's LinkedIn profile, and then it will also give me their email. And I can either go one by one, or I can export this as a CSV and upload this into any outreach tool that I would like. And so this is the beauty of Flynt, is not only do you just set it and forget it, but like I said, if we go back for a moment, these are all the leads it's gotten for me over the past few weeks. And so every single day, it'll give me a new list. I log in, I download my leads, I get going right away. Gone are the days of spending so much time building the lead lists, finding the hiring managers, getting the contact information. Nope. I log in every morning. I open up my laptop. Boom. There are my lists. And then I can spend my time on the most high value activities. That's building the relationships, talking to clients, talking to candidates. So when we talk about how do you get leads while you sleep, how do you do it without lifting a finger, tools like Flynt are essential in helping you build your business and being as effective as possible as a recruiter, so you can focus on what matters most and pushing the needle forward with your business. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave that down below in the comment section and we'll be sure to get back to you. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.